And another one goes, and another one goes, and another one fights the dust, and another one fights the dust. Beginning and ending our speeches. Chapter 10 of Dr. Stephen Lucas's public speaking textbook, The Art of Public Speaking, 13th edition. I am Dr. Heidi, and I am here to tell you effective ways to begin and end your speeches. Okay, so first we start out with the introduction. There are 5 parts of the introduction. Only 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are mentioned here. But the introduction should gain the attention of the audience and bring their interest for the topic or for the speech or the speaker. So I opened this presentation by singing. I didn't say, "Hi, my name is Dr. Heidi Gugisberg-Connors, and today we are going to cover Chapter 10, blah, blah, blah." Who cares? You guys weren't interested in it at all when I did that. Now, when I was singing to you at the beginning of the video, that was something that might have interested you. You want to reveal the topic in the introduction, so I drew in your interest, and then I told you what we were going to talk about. I'm also supposed to establish my credibility and goodwill. Well, when it comes to public speaking, I have a PhD in communication, which includes public speaking, so I established credibility. Some of you might not have degrees already to establish credibility. So what do? Well, if you've done research on a topic, you might know more than other people. So you can just say, "I've done some research. As I found in my research, I conducted research." Wow! Amazing how easy it is to establish credibility. Of course, be ethical about it. Make sure that you aren't telling them something that isn't true. Now this is where I would split these two things apart. Establishing credibility and goodwill. In a textbook that I started teaching out of by Dr. Deanna Selnow, it talked about establishing goodwill in a separate part of the introduction, and that was called listener relevance. I like this because, well, yes, it's establishing goodwill, but listener relevance actually tells the listener why they want to listen. Give them a reason for listening to your presentation. I didn't do that very well. You should listen to my presentation so that if you want to get a good grade in my class, you can get a good grade in my class. There you go. You also might want to preview the body of the speech. Okay, not might want to. You definitely want to preview the body of the speech in the introduction. Tell the audience what you intend to tell them. When you are trying to gain the attention of the audience, you need to relate the topic to the audience, state the importance of the topic. You might want to startle the audience, arouse their curiosity, question the audience, begin with a quotation, tell a story, or use visual aids. Any one of these things would allow you to draw in the attention of the audience. I remember I had a student who was going to do a demonstration speech on rebuilding a skateboard. So, at the beginning, he brought in the skateboard, he set it on the ground, he stomped on it and broke it in half. Do you think he had the attention of his audience? Absolutely. We were all sitting there with our mouths hanging open going, "Did he really just break that skateboard? Oh my God." It was fun to see, though, what he was going to do next. Then, of course, you want to make sure you relate to the audience. So the guy building the skateboard, maybe we're not all interested in making skateboards, but we might be interested in having them for sale as part of a retail business, or we might have kids later on who become interested in them. You never know.
You're being chased by an object.
Telling a story. Telling a story is another way to draw people in. Once upon a time, I moved to Colorado. Right now, I live on the plains of Colorado, but the first time I moved to Colorado, I lived much closer to the mountains in the foothills, in a town called Littleton. You may have heard of this town. In fact, most people have. It is the home of Columbine High School, where you will find the Columbine Rebels and one of the largest mass school shootings in U.S. history. That was pretty cool, huh? It really drew you in. Of course, I better be giving a speech about the events at Columbine High School. You might also try using visual aids, bringing up something that your audience can take a look at and it can draw their attention in. This was definitely what the student with the skateboard was doing. I had another student who talked to me ahead of time. She wanted to give a speech about whether Apple phones, iPhones, or Android phones were better. She had an Android phone. She asked if she might borrow my iPhone and use it as part of her speech. The idea was that she was going to walk right up to me as the teacher in the classroom, grab my iPhone off my desk, and throw it on the floor. It was in an OtterBox Defender case. I wasn't worried about it. It was awesome. All of the students in the class were hushed and quiet and looking at each other to see if she really did just do that. That's definitely using a visual aid. Somehow we backed up here instead of going forward. That's how life works. All right. Credibility is another part of the introduction. So not only do we need to draw people's attention in, we need to tell them why we're credible. And I mentioned earlier how you can establish credibility. But this is the perception of a speaker's qualifications. Are you studying something within your major that is what you're going to give a speech about? Absolutely. I actually had students one time who decided that they were going to give a speech on how to commit the perfect murder. Why would they be credible? No, they hadn't actually committed the perfect murder, but they were studying criminal justice and had lots of examples from their textbooks. It was a pretty awesome speech, I'm not gonna lie. However, they also had to establish goodwill. This is the perception of whether the speaker has the best interests of the audience in mind. When you're giving a speech on a college campus about how to commit the perfect murder, you better keep the audience's best interests in mind. The students had known each other all of that semester, and they were well aware of the fact that this group of students happened to be criminal justice majors, so that it was okay that they were going to give this type of speech. They were obviously not going to try to go out and commit the perfect murder. They were going to catch the bad guys. A preview statement is a statement in which you identify the main points of the body of the speech. So you're saying, this speech will cover, right? Except you don't actually use those words, you're a little more creative about it. So you might say something like, let's explore, let's examine, let's take a look at. I'd like to share with you. We're going to cover. Any of those ideas will be way more creative than in this speech I'm going to tell you about. So when you're preparing an introduction of a speech, you want to be concise. It shouldn't take up a lot of your speech. In fact, not even 1/5. Look for materials as you research. So not only what you need for the body of your speech, but also what you're going to include in the introduction. Be creative. Have fun. Your job in the introduction is to draw people's attention into the speech. Finalize your introduction after the body is done. Why? Because this is where you tell people what you're going to tell them in the body of the speech. So you need to know what's in the body of the speech before you can finish the introduction. And you work out your content and delivery in detail during the introduction. That way you're prepared. If you have an introduction to a speech, please, please, please have a conclusion. Why did I say it that way? And why did I say it so many times? Well, let me tell you, many of my students over the 20 years I've been teaching forget to have a conclusion. They're like, hey, I managed to get through the speech. Now I'm done, moving on. No, this is is what your audience is going to remember the longest. What you had to say last. So make sure you signal the end of the speech and you reinforce your central idea. A crescendo ending is building to a zenith of power and intensity. Kind of like something I just did, right? I said, we have explored, we have covered, and now go forth and prosper. That is, of course, building to a crescendo ending. You can also do the dissolve ending, where you generate emotional appeal by fading to a dramatic final statement. This is often where quotes come in handy. So you've summarized everything, you've repeated your thesis statement, and now you give them one final quotation to send them on their way. It's also good during the conclusion to reinforce your central idea. You summarize the speech, you can end with a quotation, you can make a dramatic statement, and always make sure you refer to the introduction. I know this sounds weird, but an introduction and a conclusion are like bookends for your speech. So make sure that you include a good conclusion at the end of the speech. When you're preparing for the conclusion, again, you want to look for materials while you're researching. Conclude with a bang and not a whimper. Remember, in one of my previous videos, I said, don't stop and say, that's all, that's it, that's what I have. Thank you. What? Why are you thanking them? They should be thanking you for the information you just provided. Saying thank you at the end of the speech is kind of like, thanks for listening, thanks for wasting your time, thanks for being here, even though you didn't have to. Let them thank you. That's what the applause is for. In your conclusion, it should also be brief, like the introduction, and you want to work out your content and delivery in detail, so that this is the way that you send them off with your speech. Also, as you may have just seen there, the girl started to say, in conclusion. You don't need to say in conclusion. We should be hearing things that we've already heard, so we should know that you were concluding the speech. Speaking of which, I should probably conclude this video.